All right, welcome, Dr. Mariza, to the Biohacker Babes. Thanks for joining us today.
Renee, honey, thanks for having me, both of you. Yay, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, you're tuning in from my favorite place in the world, Disney.
Yes.
I love
Yep. I
it.
got my ears ready, my little mini ears. I think my son has those, and he's going to be
Amazing.
riding Big Thunder Mountain for the first time today. We're very excited.
Oh, that
That
ride
is
is so fun.
It's so
exciting.
fun.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Well, yeah, so when we wrap up, we'll let you go have fun in the parks with your mini ears and all the things. But so today we're really excited to bring an important topic to our audience. We're going to be talking about perimenopause and really a deep dive on all the things that women need to know, especially in your 30s. You know, that we were talking about before we hit record, like how to prepare for that next stage. And I actually want to share something that I thought this was funny timing. When I woke up this morning, I checked my email and I saw this headline and it said, Study exposes medical gaslighting of women. And I was
Mm,
like, that's funny timing, like, because we're going to be talking about some things like that. And
yeah.
it's actually like, I'll link to this in the show notes, this study of over 11,000 women, where they found that if physicians didn't really know how to diagnose certain symptoms or things, they just kind of wrote the people off as, you're crazy, it's all in your head. And I think women deal with this a lot, right? As you transition into perimenopause, maybe you have mood swings, poor sleep, brain fog. You can't control your blood sugar the way you used to. Your digestion has changed. And your physician might say, there's nothing to that, but there is, right? And so we're really going to
Yes.
get into that. So, yeah, I thought that was like such funny timing with the universal email system there.
I
But
I mean, I really do appreciate the using, studies to validate what women have been experienced for so long. But it's interesting to me that
yeah,
we need a study to
I
validate
know.
what women have been feeling for so long.
Right.
In fact,
Right.
just a quick stat, it takes an average of 4 to 6 office visits with your primary or your OBGYN to finally connect the dots between your symptoms and perimenopause and menopause.
Four to
Too
six.
Mhm.
many. Too many.
Too many.
Wow. Yeah,
It's a lot
that's
of
going to take
time
way
and
too
money
long.
and resources and misdiagnosis,
Mhm.
and then delayed treatment. So it really adds up in terms of quality of life.
Mm.
Mhm.
So what would you say is like the first sign or symptom that women should be kind of like thinking like, oh, hey, maybe my hormones are changing. There's something I should start doing differently
I
now.
love this question. Yeah. When we were brought up, well, two things I was brought up with. One, you just tolerated your period. That was, this thing that we had to deal with every single month. And how miraculous is it that we prime up for potential conception every single month? Like what a miracle. Like what a metabolic miracle, what a
Yeah.
reproductive miracle, like ovulation, what a main event. So that was number one. Number two, the other thing that I was taught growing up was that, not only to tolerate your periods, but also that everything is the only difference between you and men is your reproductive health. So really bikini medicine. Like it's your all that perimenopause is or menopause is skipped periods, irregular periods, no more periods. And it is a full body recalibration. And so I think a lot of women were brought up told that look out for your period changing or look out for your menstrual cycle changing. And for a lot of women, especially super early, like late reproductive stage, early perimenopause, cycles don't change that much. Not really. And
Mm.
maybe, for many of us, if we are not really super aware of our cycles, if we're not tracking our cycles consistently and we really know what's going on, we may not even notice that it went from 30 days to 28 days or 27 days, or we may not notice it got a little bit heavier, and so it's very subtle signs and symptoms for many women in late reproductive age. And how we define late reproductive age is any age, any woman after the age of 35. Right. We remember growing up talking about geriatric pregnancies. Like after 35, we know that we only have so many eggs left, so many thousands of eggs left. And we also know that the ovaries know that. They're like, okay, we're on the wind down. And so because of that shift in or that decline in egg supply, we will start to see for some women a slight decline in progesterone levels. And so, what does that look like in the luteal phase of our cycle? So, the beginning of early perimenopause, I would say, can be very cyclical. that a lot of the symptoms can happen in the luteal phase of the cycle after ovulation. And so maybe it is PMS symptoms are a little bit more exacerbated. Instead of it being 2 or 3 days, all of a sudden it's 4 or 5 days. Or you notice you don't have the same level of stress resilience that you used to have. Or like so many of us, we are juggling so many different activities. We are running our households, we're running our families, we're running our careers, and doing it effortlessly so often, like all the balls are in the air and we are juggling them. And then all of a sudden, it's not feeling so effortless anymore. We're having to effort through it. And that's usually, I'll see women in their late 30s, like, like I had this. And all of a sudden, I'm having to try harder. Also, women notice they're more irritable. Workout recovery isn't the same. Maybe minor body composition changes. Again, a lot of it is subtle to the point that it's easy to brush off, because it feels just like an exacerbation of the daily pain points of everyday life that women are told that we just deal with. So it can be hard to pick up on, easy to miss.
Absolutely. There's so much gray area there, especially that, like, after being taught for so many years through conventional medicine, even holistic and functional medicine, like things are so binary, right? It's like,
it's very gray
or not. You're autoimmune. Or
you're like,
not.
Did I not sleep enough?
Menopause.
Totally.
There's nothing in between.
Where's the in between? Puberty wasn't in between.
Yeah. Right. We're just not taught to listen to our bodies. I think when working with clients, I struggle with this all the time. You ask them how they feel. People are like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel. So what would you recommend if we're really trying to hone in on that luteal phase is maybe the first part that could start to highlight or shift? How would you track, maybe both subjectively and objectively? What would you do for yourself, or how do you guide other people to tracking?
I love this question. And this is what gives us agency. This is what allows you to advocate for yourself. And this is also what allows you to become the CEO of your health, because nobody knows your body better than you, ideally. Hopefully you know your body the best. And no one's going to fight for you the way that you're going to fight for yourself, right? Like, unless you've still got a mama who's willing to go to bat for you, a lot of us are the moms at this point, right? We're going to bat for our children. 3 things that I'm looking for myself, and also as a practitioner who is looking at women, even in their 30s, but definitely early 40s as well. One, I'd love to know your menstrual cycle changes. So track your menstrual cycle meticulously, meaning like know your follicular phase, know what ovulation feels like. What does that first week of the luteal phase feel like? Like, you still good? Can you still do the big workouts? Like, you're feeling good? And like, every woman's going to be different. Like, I can still do a heavy workout, days leading into my period. It just really depends on where I'm at. And then what's going on in that second week of the luteal phase did progesterone, did she show up? Is she doing what she's supposed to be doing? Yeah. So it's important. Are we seeing lower progesterone and unopposed estrogen in this part of your cycle, where we're noticing fibrocystic, heavy, tender breasts? We're noticing more bloating and heavier periods. So those kind of things are going to be really helpful. I always say track your symptoms along with your cycle, because that can give us so much information. I don't want to say against your cycle, but along with your cycle. So maybe your follicular phase, man, you're still feeling great. You're still getting that estradiol peak. I always joke that everyone wants day 11 us, day 12 us, right? Like, it's
that's presentation day, podcast day, do something hard day,
up day, put the short skirt on day. It's sensual. It's like we are our most confident, our most motivated, our most sensual, our most all the things. Put the red lipstick on day.
I just had that happen a couple of days ago, and I was wearing this like red bikini around my house into the pool, and my husband was like, are you feeling like really good today? You look good. You're like on fire. I'm like, yeah.
Estradiol peak, baby. That's what's up. Yeah. Right now, and not so much day 27. And I think that, luckily we're learning how to really honor ourselves throughout the process, and really just honor where we're at, that we're not always meant to be day 12. I mean, as much as we have been told we should be. And we love the way it feels. But I will tell you, even in perimenopause, later in your perimenopausal cycles, like late that luteal peak is going to start to fall flat too. Like, we're going to start to see major changes across the entire cycle. But in the very beginning, you're still going to feel really good in that follicular phase. You're going to notice at day 5 of your cycle, when that estrogen's coming up, you're going to feel that peak. But then in the luteal phase, that's where you're going to start to pay attention, because some of those cycles that you're having, especially in your late 30s, may be anovulatory, meaning you don't actually ovulate in that cycle. And so progesterone doesn't show up at all, right? Because if we don't have that temporary endocrine structure, that corpus luteum releasing progesterone on the back end of ovulation, we're just not going to feel all the wonderful benefits that progesterone brings to the table. And so I always say, track those symptoms, see if there's cyclical changes, and then next have a timeline of labs. And not just hormone labs, although I do think hormone labs can be really beneficial starting as early as your 30s. But if we can have metabolic labs, blood glucose, and highly sensitive CRP, if we can have a fasting insulin, I can tell if a woman's in perimenopause if I have a timeline of labs and I can start to see things shifting over time. So again, even with hormones, we may not see a major shift, especially in late reproductive stage and early perimenopause, but I may see other changes in her labs, like inflammation and fasting, like insulin resistance and things like that will start to pop up.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask about like some metabolic markers. Is fasting insulin like the number one thing you would track for metabolic health? And then also, why is that being impacted?
Such a great question. So why it's being impacted, one, it's one of my favorite labs to run. It's not my full metabolic panel by any means, and I can give you guys those labs in just a second. But it is a big indicator, mainly because when estrogen becomes wonky, and she starts to become wonky in early peri, more so, estrogen isn't fully declining by any means at this point. For some women it is, but I would say the majority, we still tend to be a little bit more estrogenic as opposed to lower progesterone levels. But that inconsistency, when hormones are not binding to receptor sites rhythmically the way that they have been doing for 30 years, we start to notice those types of shifts. So women will begin to become a little bit more insulin resistant versus being insulin sensitive. And estrogen is a really powerful hormone for metabolic health and for insulin sensitivity. And when it starts to erratically bind to receptor sites, we will start to see a shift, not only in insulin, but potentially your fasting glucose, but also triglycerides. I would say highly sensitive CRP, so your inflammatory marker, HDL, so that is your high density lipoprotein cholesterol, your total cholesterol, and also another lab that I will see start to move is going to be like your iron numbers as well. So I'll start to see all these types of numbers begin to decline or move in an unfavorable direction as women move through the perimenopause journey. And that's just because there's something about these hormones erratically binding to our receptor sites that leads to more inflammation and leads to less stability in terms of our metabolic health.
Okay. And
I wasn't thinking I was going to interject here about GLP-1s. I'm just thinking about that because in that transition, when we become more insulin insensitive, I think a lot of women are jumping to that. Let's get some outside support through these medications to help with that glucose impact that's happening. But then, of course, we're seeing some downstream effect on like muscle protein synthesis and perhaps like digestive markers, which I think are already taking a hit in this transition. Can you talk about maybe the other systems that are being affected when the hormones start to fluctuate and maybe how that could either help or hurt in terms of bringing a GLP-1?
Yeah, so it is sorry about that. When our hormones are declining, it is a full body transition. It's a full body reckoning. You think about these hormones and how mission critical they are to our metabolic health, our cardiovascular health, our bones, our brain health. When estrogen begins to decline, particularly, I would say early, definitely late perimenopause, we're talking about a loss in gray and white matter, a decrease as big as 20% in energy metabolism in the brain, an increase in inflammation in the brain. It's why I would say 70 to 80% of perimenopausal symptoms are brain related. So it is, I call perimenopause not only a metabolic reckoning, but also a neuroendocrine transition. That's really profound. And also the gut. We know that when we start to lose estrogen, our gut microbiome diversity declines. And so not in a good way. And so, women will notice, body composition changes, whether the scale moves or not. They'll start to see the fat that was on their booty or on their thighs, right? They're kind of the estrogenic profile. It starts to move over to that visceral belly fat and that belly fat. And obviously it's not something that any of us are wanting. And we experience weight resistance. I think it's so crazy that, for so long, and even today, there's still a lot of controversy and argument around, we're just blaming this weight gain on aging for women. And I'm like, it's not. It's a big part of what the Perimenopause Revolution book is all about, is looking at the metabolic shift, like the elephant in the room. Like, women are like, how is it that I've been eating the same way, exercising the same way, diligent? I mean, every woman I work, these are lazy women. These are women that are not working their butt off. If anything, so many of my patients are overdoing, because we're so quick to blame ourselves. Also, the medical system and society is so quick to blame us too. Like, oh, this is your fault. This is what you've done to yourself. No, we're talking about a profound shift. That could lifestyle be a bit of it? Sure. If you're a mom in midlife and you've got the demands of your children, and you grew up with the belief of self-sacrificing, I can see how maybe a few workouts are missed, but for the most part, women are making it up. And yet their bodies are changing without permission. It absolutely has to do with these hormones. And, how many HIIT classes can you sign up for? How many, it can feel even heavy lifting. Like, how much can you do, and then calorie deficit, and still so many women come to me and like, I am doing all the things. I'm clocking 14,000 steps every day. I'm in the gym 5 days a week. I am only eating protein and vegetables, and I'm still putting on the weight. And so, that's why I do really appreciate that there are other interventions. Like, could you use a little bit more help if you're really struggling with weight resistance and you are checking all the boxes? Your sleep is optimized, you're moving your body, you're balancing your blood sugar, you're tracking your blood sugar with a continuous glucose monitor. I mean, you are doing all the things. Could a GLP-1 peptide be supportive, even just to kind of help move the needle for you? Yes. Now, note that this is very case by case, depending on the woman. But I have found them to be super helpful in perimenopause, especially when it's paired with hormone replacement therapy. Like, we can absolutely combine forces with both peptides and hormones to help women ease their symptoms, but also ease some of the silent shifts. We don't feel blood pressure rising. We don't feel blood sugar rising. We don't always feel inflammation in the body. We don't feel our cardiometabolic health beginning to shift in an unfavorable direction. Unfortunately, it's not until down the road that we start to see these symptoms really arise. But a lot of this is happening in perimenopause. And so I'm a big proponent that we bring in all the tools in the toolbox to help women not only reduce the risk of chronic conditions, but also help them feel amazing in their body throughout the process.
Yeah, I like the toolbox idea. So when do you think most women should be starting bioidentical hormones? I know it is an individual thing, but is there kind of a range of when we should be considering that?
It really is dependent on the women. Some women do get through perimenopause without a lot of symptoms. That doesn't mean that there aren't silent shifts. It doesn't mean that they haven't been losing bone and muscle. That doesn't mean that their brain hasn't been losing energy as well. It's been efficiently busting through amazing energy. These things are still happening, often behind the scenes. So it's something to be considered. Right now, the way that we look at HRT and a GLP-1, understandably, is symptoms. Right? If I'm struggling with weight resistance, if I'm putting on weight, if I'm becoming insulin resistant, if my blood glucose is in the pre-diabetic range, that would be a reason for a GLP-1, right? For HRT, the way that we look at it is more so also subjective symptoms as well. Am I struggling with hot flashes and night sweats and low libido and UTIs? Although those things, some of those are not subjective, or incontinence. This would be a recommendation for HRT. We're beginning to shift the way that we think about hormone replacement therapy, though, thank goodness. Not just as a symptom management tool, but as a longevity tool. So how do we leverage HRT in women in perimenopause in the zone of opportunity? This is the zone of opportunity. The reason why that it is because it's the zone of vulnerability. We should be addressing women when they have symptoms and the chaos of symptoms as well. But also we should be catching women before hormones are completely at an all-time low. And a lot of those changes are locked and loaded. So my recommendation is a combination of symptom management and prevention and longevity. So depending on the symptoms, it may be worthwhile to bring in hormone replacement therapy as early perimenopause. where women are struggling with the brain related symptoms and the mood symptoms and the sleep issues and the stress intolerance. Like that is a really good time to be investigating. But particularly in late perimenopause, where we know that estrogen is definitely declining at that point, we should be looking at DEXA scans. We should be running full metabolic and lab panels. We need to know, how is a decline in estrogen affecting her systemically? And how do we ensure that we are future proofing her health? So I would say that by late perimenopause and you're skipping periods, we should be looking at HRT as a longevity strategy, not just a symptom management strategy. Like gone are the days that we should only be using it for hot flashes, night sweats, low libido, and sleep issues. Like we can do way better than that.
Yeah, we fully agree. Like just generally looking at the menstrual cycle and then that transition as future casting for longevity. Your hormones are your report card, and it's really going to set you up for success long term. So I like that. In general, of course, this is always bio individual, but like general order of events, would you say that we're trickling in all three of the major steroid hormones at the same time, or would we go like progesterone usually first, estrogen, testosterone, or is it sort of all over the map per person?
It can be all over the map. I always want to anchor to the fact that every woman's going to be individual. One of my best friends is she's a hormone specialist and really known for helping women support their periods. And for her, we're the exact same age. We're like a week apart. And for her estradiol levels tanked really early in her perimenopausal journey, whereas mine have been okay. Like it was my progesterone levels that really, really tanked in the beginning. And so even just between as an N of one that she is and that I am, her protocol is vastly different than me. And you would think that there's a lot of things that she and I are very similar with. That's just kind of the way that it landed for her. Like her periods became erratic. She started having 60 days or more without periods, even in early perimenopause, which means that maybe she's actually in late perimenopause now, that she may be going into menopause earlier than. So it just depends. If natural menopause is anywhere between 45 and 55 years old, man, that's a big range. And if perimenopause is 4 to 10 years prior to that, like if we do the math, right, some women can be experiencing like irregular periods even in their late 30s. I have a lot of friends of mine who went into menopause at 45, 46, 47 years old. I think we always think that it's going to happen in our 50s, but it absolutely can happen, much sooner than that. So I just wanted to just kind of just put that in terms of context. Normally, we do see a decline in progesterone first. And that's usually what women will feel. They'll feel those progesterone driven symptoms, the sleep issues, the PMS symptoms, the mood issues. And progesterone, a very safe hormone to bring on. I've got it I actually have it in my purse right here as I'm traveling. I've got my progesterone in my purse. Yeah. And so I find that a lot of women and a lot of doctors, it's also, a lot of doctors feel very safe putting women on progesterone. They're like, yeah, we'll put you on progesterone. Sure. But I guess labs will dictate as well to some degree, particularly testosterone. So maybe a woman, is in her early 40s, progesterone still looks great. Estrogen still looks okay. Symptoms are fine, but she has a lack of motivation, a lack of libido, confidence. Her brain isn't firing on all cylinders. And testosterone may be the solution to come on in. I don't typically see that. I usually see the progression of progesterone, estrogen, testosterone is usually what I'll see. But again, the labs can tell a different story. It just really depends on their symptoms and their labs that kind of dictates the care and the protocol.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Really blending the subjective and objective. We always talk about that. We need both again, because we're not feeling so much. So we need like multiple ways of supporting this and finding more evidence. I like that.
Yeah. Test, don't guess. Yeah. And also, even if the test, because I can't tell you how many times women are told, oh, your estrogen's in range, this massive range. It's in range. And you're just like, but I'm not in range. I don't feel good.
The target is this big.
I don't like this range. Yeah.
So I think I would never hold off, recommending or prescribing HRT or estrogen, for example, if I'm like, oh, she's in range. Like, what if I caught her on a really good day? What
most doctors are not looking at the day of the cycle.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
They're just cycle. It's in range for what day?
Yeah. For what day? Yeah. Where are we looking? What are we even looking at? Yeah. Or maybe we test her on a day where she does have really high estrogen and we're like, actually, you're estrogen dominant. There's no way I'm giving you estrogen. Maybe we caught you in day 11, day 12. So yeah, it's that literacy right. that we need as providers and practitioners, but also it's important that women have that literacy as well, so that they can really, one, know when to test, know when to advocate for testing, and understanding kind of, okay, I nailed day 21. Now, mind you, if you're having irregular cycles at this point, it is really challenging to kind of nail that date. And I would just test at any time. I wouldn't hold off testing because you're looking for that perfect day that you can't seem to nail.
Okay.
Because it just gets really hard in like mid to late perimenopause. It gets challenging, and then it's frustrating, and women are just like, how do I even do this? And I don't want women to not run labs because they are scared that they're not picking the right day, especially when it's probably at that point almost impossible to do so. So that needs to be taken into consideration. And at that point, if you've got symptoms and your cycle is irregular or you're skipping cycles, it is obvious that you are in late perimenopause, and it is obvious that estrogen is not showing up the way that she's supposed to. Like, that becomes crystal clear. Yeah. That shouldn't really be debatable at that point, that you're needing support.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So for me, my labs, like my estrogen and testosterone tend to be on the low end of the range. And my progesterone is always like
she's showing up.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I've watched, a lot of stuff on like social media and even some colleagues in the space where they're like, if you start to struggle with poor sleep or the brain fog, or maybe even younger infertility, just take some progesterone. Everyone can just take progesterone. You can buy it online. And I feel like some people throw it around like candy. Mm-hmm. And I always think back to like myself. I'm like, if I had just added on more progesterone, where would I have put myself? So what do you think about like that messaging that some people are hearing?
I think it's obviously potentially dangerous. That you're just slapping. I mean, these are really profound chemical messengers that are signaling a lot of systems of the body. With that said, that caveat, it's rare for me. I mean, obviously there are women who have progesterone sensitivity and just hormone sensitivity as a whole. So we'll see that as well, in terms of it can mess with her. It actually can mess with sleep. It can mess with moods. It can mess with bloating and just having a level of intolerance. I think because as a whole, when we think of women in averages, a lot of women do struggle with low levels of progesterone. I am one of those women. Unlike you, I had low levels of progesterone in my late 20s, even into my 30s. I miscarried I miscarried back I was 40, but I miscarried at 40 with that first baby. And then I got pregnant with my son, but I was supplementing with progesterone at that point. We think that progesterone was a big, we never really fully know, but my levels were not robust, and I had struggled with low progesterone levels for a very long time. And so I think as we always think that, because on average, we see so many women with low progesterone, even as early as their early to mid 30s, we always think that that's going to be the solution to some of these problems. But we always need to be looking at the root cause. Could it be something else that's driving those symptoms? And we should be looking at levels always to make sure that we can validate that. It's so nuanced, because we always want to be careful. We don't want to be over prescribing or over recommending. Also, if a woman's really complaining and she can't seem to get labs ran for whatever reason, I don't want that. I don't want that to be the reason why I'm not helping and supporting her. Does that make sense? Because, absolutely. In certain areas of the country, or, depending on a woman's, whatever her financial situation is, labs can be expensive. And so, and if you talk to a lot of, primary doctors or providers, they don't ever run labs. Never. They're just going to base it on symptoms anyway. And so, as much as I want the gold standard to be test, don't guess, I also want to meet women where they're at. I don't want them to think that the only reason I'm going to recommend something is because I've got labs. Because with hormones, it can be so hard to nail as well. I can see that labs look fine, but then she's not fine. So gosh, it's an interesting thing. So the way that as a practitioner, the way that I look at things is, one, I look at your symptoms. I look at how your symptoms are affecting your life. I just want to know, like, how is it impacting your work, your day, your family, your relationships? I also want to know how you're living your life. What does your day-to-day look like? What's your night routine and your morning routine? What are you eating? I want you to keep a food journal. Mind you, in that first intake, I just want to get a good sense of like, how are you living life? Is there anything I can pick up from that? Then I want labs. Ideally, I want to be able to validate a lot of what you're experiencing and also pick up on things that you may not know about, right? Those hidden shifts, those silent shifts. And then lastly, I want to know your goals. Where are we going? How do you want to feel in 30, 90 days? What are your long-term goals? What would you love to experience? All of that is taken into consideration when I'm working with a patient, all of it, because I can't really make powerful, like needle moving protocols without understanding the full picture. Also, let's say I want you in the gym 4 days a week lifting, compounded movements. I want you to be building muscle, but that is impossible for you. Like given your schedule and what's going on in your life and the amount of kids you got and all the things, you're like, I can do two. So it's important that I'm always working with a patient, because I may be recommending 12,000 steps a day or 10,000 steps a day. And she's like, man, can we start with 8? Can we start with 9? Because if I'm recommending something that is impossible for you to do right now in your life, then what's the point of my recommendation to begin with? So all of these things need to be taken into consideration. I could have this amazing gold standard protocol, but if you're not able to implement it, like even half of it, what's the point? So that also needs to be taken into consideration.
Right. Absolutely. And not to knock like online programs, but we really need that art of coaching and the practitioner relationship, because I've seen that too, where clients are they're getting 800 steps and I'm like, we're not going to aim for 10,000. Hell no. We got to do milestones. You got to meet them where they're at. Always, always, always. And I just love that you're really trying to give people wins, not just relying like, I love labs 100%, but it does, I see people that look totally normal on paper and they're like, I feel like shit. And that's enough.
And that's why I wanted to just, Renee, that nuance of, are we over prescribing progesterone? It's so hard because labs can tell a different picture. Because again, even throughout the day, progesterone is going to shift and change. And can I even get the labs? Can I even nail her the right, can we get the right date? Is it a challenge to get those labs? And so, obviously I have a gold standard of what I would love, but also I'm also trying to meet my patient with where she's at. Also, I'm not willy-nilly just saying, get on progesterone. It is always a nuance.
On Amazon.
And even then I'm like, is it really progesterone? Like, what are we working with here? Again, the dosage on Amazon is usually it's like 25 milligrams, 50 milligrams, and it's usually a cream form. Progesterone is a big molecule. It doesn't absorb super great inside of the skin. Can women feel a little bit of a difference? Sure. 25 milligrams, will it, is it going to really move the needle? It's just really mostly no, and but even still, I would, instead of buying it on Amazon or getting it from wherever, I'd at least love for a provider to be looking at that information of yours before you're being prescribed it.
With more access, we have more responsibility to make sure we're doing the right thing across all things in our health journey. But I would love to talk about delivery formats, because it's probably different, the ideal for the major steroid hormones. So can we start with progesterone, best delivery, general ranges, and then do the same for estrogen and testosterone?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that for progesterone, because main delivery is going to be oral micronized progesterone. And it comes, if it's FDA approved, it's Perimetrium. It's important to note that Perimetrium is suspended in peanut oil, and they dye the medication with red and yellow dyes. I don't know why. I don't know why that's necessary. I don't understand.
I never understand the colors.
I don't either.
I don't care if it's poo brown. I don't care.
I know.
No. I don't care if it smells, honestly. If it's the good stuff, give it to me.
It's so, it only really comes in 100 and 200 milligram dosage there. Just know. I think 100 the cool thing about 100 is you can dose it up. Some women will like maybe closer to that progesterone peak. They may bump it to 200, start with 100, bump it to 200, bring it back down to 100. But usually it's recommended recommend a static dosage. Usually it's 100 milligrams to start. If it's not, that's not getting the job done in the luteal phase of your cycle, particularly in perimenopause, because you're still cycling most likely in that phase. Usually they'll bump you up to 200. I say start with 100, see how you feel, and go from there. If you have a peanut allergy or you cannot tolerate dyes, now you're talking about going the compounded route. Now we can really play with dosage. It could be 50, it could be 100, it could be 200, it could be 400. It's going to cost more money. That's the problem with compounded, but it may be the direction that you need to go. Permetrium is extremely cheap. We're talking about, $10, $12 on average for most people when it's covered by insurance. And the one thing that I love about oral micronized progesterone is it will impact the brain. So it will impact mood and sleep and anxiety and stress tolerance, and really the reasons why a lot of women will want to take it. In menopause, it's usually recommended to just take it continuously. And there's a lot of debate between whether you should cycle it or take it continuously. Note that if you do cycle progesterone in menopause, you will have a bleed. You will have a progesterone withdrawal bleed. And some women are just so happy to be in menopause and not be bleeding anymore.
Yeah.
They don't want to do that. And so, you'll get a lot of people who will argue the benefits of cycling progesterone versus continuous. I just say what works for you. If you are having horrible sleep and the thing that addresses that in a really beautiful way, besides your sleep strategies, is taking oral micronized progesterone every single night, well, then do that. If you find that you're getting more benefit from cycling it, by all means. For me, I'm still in perimenopause. I'm still cycling. I cycle progesterone.
Okay. Would you say there's at some point, because if this is a lifestyle strategy for longevity, we're going to be doing this forever. At some point, would you just choose to stop cycling it? And just
because at this point, I will never. So if you're on HRT in perimenopause and you're cycling progesterone and doing estrogen in perimenopause, you're never going to know when you get into menopause. You're just going to keep. Right. You're just going to be on HRT mimicking the whole time. Yeah, I mean, your follicular stimulating hormone is never going to go up. It's never going to, you're never going to know. And so, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing at all. And, if I'm keeping hormones I'm keeping hormones at a decent level, estrogen and progesterone, and I am just riding that train into perimenopause and beyond, that you're just not gonna know. So, I just, you could decide at like 53 or 54, you know what, I'm going to start taking progesterone continuously. But I also, let's say if your sleep gets worse and it's really bad when you're not cycling it, then that may be a worthy time to start bringing it on continuously. And again, we just don't have enough data. We don't have enough clinical research for perimenopause and hormone replacement therapy to really kind of know what the right decision is. I always just say it's really based on you and what's going on with you and what's the right move for your body. Yeah. So that's progesterone.
Okay. Estrogen. But it makes sense to me, at least initially, to cycle it. And I like not even just follicular luteal, but within luteal doing the little peak, like you said, which I don't see a lot of doctors recommending that.
No, we don't have a lot of doctors. A lot of you're going to see that more in functional spaces and integrative doctors so there's a difference between, cycling versus continuous is really in relation to progesterone. So cycling it is in 12 days out of the month. Continuous is every single day out of the month. Estrogen is always happening. Estrogen is 24/7, 28 days or however many days out of the month, you're always using estrogen. So that doesn't change. Then you get into the conversation of rhythmic dosing. So with that now, we're talking about kind of matching the dosing of your estrogen and progesterone as it would normally be physiologically, rhythmically dosing throughout your cycle. And really the big change there is really making sure that we peak that estrogen and we peak that progesterone. For me, as an example, so I'll use my N of 1 example. So I just wear a continuous patch for estrogen. I'm not rhythmically dosing estrogen, but I am rhythmically dosing progesterone. So when I start in my cycle of the luteal phase, I will start with 100 milligrams of compounded progesterone or permetrium, whatever. I'll just give an example of progesterone. And then as I'm getting closer to 7 days into that luteal phase, basically that progesterone bump, that peak, I will jump up to 200 milligrams of progesterone, probably for about 4 to 5 days. And then I will start to go back down to the 100 milligrams of progesterone until I stop taking it, right at my cycle. The reason why I do that is I find that if I stay at 200, I find that I do well with 200 milligrams throughout my cycle when I have chronic migraines. So the progesterone helps to mitigate my migraines. So I will go up to 200, but if I just stop taking 200 milligrams of progesterone and I just fall off a cliff from 200 to 0, it is devastating for my mood and my PMS symptoms. Like it's like I am literally on a 200 milligram freight train and then I hit a wall. And yeah, it is talk about the messy middle. Like, oh my gosh, it is a hot mess. And so what I'll do is I'll go down to 100 and it's more of a tapering than me just falling off the cliff at 2.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah.
And so for women, depending, they'll do the same thing with estrogen, right? They'll have a lower dose, they'll come up to a higher dose and then kind of taper back down when we're technically supposed to be ovulating and then bring it back over. So again, with rhythmic dosing, it's not super complicated, but it's also, it's not often recommended. It's just not being recommended, mainly because doctors only know what they know. You have to understand that for 2 decades, doctors were not even recommending or prescribing hormone replacement therapy. And they surely were not prescribing rhythmic dosing versus static dosing. So now we have a majority of providers who don't know how to prescribe HRT at all, let alone, getting into the nuance of rhythmic dosing.
There's still a lot of fear, especially around estrogen. People are still not wrapping their heads around this old flawed science. I think it's going to take some time.
Yeah. So right now, only 6% of women in the US are on hormone replacement therapy.
6?
Whereas before the Women's Health Initiative, it was over 40%.
Wow.
Wow.
So we've got a lot of work to do.
Not bounced back. Wow.
That's insane. Particularly for women in perimenopause, it's not where the gold standard for perimenopause is going to be antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, and birth control. Those are going to be the things. And the reason why is that in perimenopause, you can still get pregnant. I mean, so a lot of women, obviously there's lots of ways that we can mitigate getting pregnant besides hormonal birth control. But if women are struggling with, cyclical symptoms, or they are struggling with menstrual cycle irregularity or missed periods or heavy bleeding, usually the recommendation is going to be hormonal birth control. But that doesn't address any of the mood. Again, 80% of the most common symptoms of perimenopause are brain related. That progestin IUD or that combination pill will not address the brain related symptoms. Mostly just the cyclical symptoms.
Is that because the synthetic can't cross the blood-brain barrier? It's not acting on insulin?
All the things, yeah. So one, yes, it's not going to impact the brain in a meaningful way. It's not going to bind to receptor sites in a meaningful way. It's not progesterone or allopregnanolone, right? And it's like, do you ever play telephone as a kid and like the message just gets garbled? When we're using synthetic hormones, it's the signal is not the same. It's just not the same. So we're starting to see women, as we have these kind of conversations, if they're not needing full-on contraception or they're using other means and methods, they're opting for the real hormones. The only time where I'm really recommending birth control or an IUD is usually when flooding is uncontrollable. So really, really, really heavy bleeding, and the oral micronized progesterone is not touching it. Because that would be the thing that would help mitigate that. Then, something like an IUD or a mini pill or a combination would be helpful to manage that heavy bleeding. Because now we're dealing with things like anemia and, really severe, exhaustion and with that blood loss. And so if we can't seem to control it, let's say it's because of fibroids, and let's say they're not operable. There's a lot of reasons where we would be thinking, okay, well, let's just put her on birth control until we get through this really intense flooding period. So that would be a reason. Also, for some cases with really severe PMS symptoms, a progestin could be more helpful than oral micronized progesterone, but it is really case by case.
It's so personal.
It's so personal. It's so nuanced. And that's why HRT and all of this, whether it's synthetic or bioidentical, it's never a one size fits all, especially in perimenopause. Because the one thing I can tell you for sure in peri, that your dosing last year is probably not going to be your dosing this year. It's just not, because your hormones are vastly different last year than they are this year. So my dosage has shifted a bunch of times. I'm still playing with my HRT protocol.
And that seems like a non-negotiable. You need a practitioner that's going to check in with you and retest. I've had some clients where they just get the dosage and they're sent on their way forever. It's like, what about tomorrow?
Or what about it? What about it not working? What about the symptoms? They're still there. We didn't get it
right the first time.
We didn't get it right. So what about the patches and staying on? So it's a very nuanced, you really do need someone who's working with you side by side, or at least who's willing to after 60 days of this isn't working for me, willing to look at dosing, my symptoms, and course correct from there.
Okay. Are you taking new patients?
No, not right now.
Yeah.
I'm not with the book and everything.
Yeah. I figured you're busy. Okay. Because I'm sure the audience is thinking well, now what?
We'll share resources so they can get more of your brain at the end for sure. So you talked about oral micronized progesterone for estrogen. Are you looking at a patch, transdermal? That's a better delivery?
I typically love, right now, we don't have a lot of oral bioidentical estrogen, and a lot of it's up for debate, whether oral bioidentical estrogen is the way to go. For ease, I can get why people are like, it's the easier thing. With the Women's Health Initiative study, note that was all synthetic estrogen, right? That was CEEs, conjugated equine estrogen. And it was a bundle of estrogens. It wasn't estradiol by any means. And so currently right now, what we feel is safe and the most efficacious that we can go with is going to be transdermal. For a lot of women, that is going to be the patch. What I will say about the patch is often we are started on the lowest dose because we're so scared of it. So 0.025, maybe 0.05, it depends. And that's usually it may mitigate your hot flashes and your night sweats or some of those symptoms, but that's not a longevity. Those often for most women, it's not a longevity dosage. And so working with a provider that kind of understands that we're not going for the lowest dose for the least amount of time is really important. My dosage is higher than that I'm taking, and I'm in peri. So, it's just, again, it really just depends. So working with your provider to see if the patch is good enough. The patch is what is FDA approved. That's how we would do transdermal. And it's usually, again, below the panty line, you kind of hide it, and it's done twice a week. So you switch it out every 3.5 days, every 3 to 4 days, basically. So it's pretty easy to put on. The other options for transdermal is going to be gel and cream and even a spray. Although a lot of women don't have a lot of results with the spray, it just really depends, the Eva Mist. But often the creams and the gels are compounded, so they're going to be more expensive. They're not going to be covered by insurance. If you're a mom like me, anything that I put on my arm, it can actually rub off on my child. So that's a no-go. Even if I wanted to do a compounded estrogen, it's out. So I use a patch.
Dog is licking your
arm, dog is licking you, but I pick up my son constantly. It's summertime right now when we're recording this. We're Renee and I are in the same black tank top. You know what I'm saying? So so you have to, there's a lot of circumstances can I even rub a gel in? Can I rub progesterone in if it's a cream? For a lot of moms, it's a no. So, that's why a lot of the orals make a lot of sense. So that's why the oral micronized progesterone makes a lot of sense in terms of convenience, but also a patch that is covered, that isn't exposed to anyone or anything, makes a lot of sense as well, just in terms of life happening. So again, you start with that dosage. You see, usually it's going to be a 0.05 dose, unless you're working with a functional practitioner who may start you a little bit higher, and just see how you're doing. But not just see your symptoms, but also let's watch labs over time. Because again, estrogen and progesterone are immune system modulators. and they can help regulate the immune system. So I'll watch labs, particularly inflammatory labs like homocysteine and fibrinogen and sed rate and highly sensitive CRP, uric acid, vitamin D. Again, vitamin D, we usually need to be taking vitamin D or be in the sun to make that move. But those are all inflammation driven labs. And I will see those move in favorable directions when estrogen is on the scene. Yeah. So I'll be looking at that.
Like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That seems like it goes both ways, right? Because inflammation can downstream affect our hormones, but also hormones are anti-inflammatory.
Yes. And I mean, and right. Estrogen can be a bit inflammatory depending. That's why I always say it's a modulator more than it's. Now, does it mostly move us in a state of decreasing inflammation? Absolutely. And it can also trigger inflammation too. So just something to be mindful of. If that's why it's so important, I find that we be healthy hosts for our hormones. Always, whether it's endogenous or exogenous, right? We want to be healthy hosts for the hormones that we're making, so that's important as well. So just note, so sometimes women, we tout HRT estrogen as this magic bullet, and oh my gosh, she can really be a magic bullet. And if we have crappy sleep, we're significantly insulin resistant, we're eating a lot of takeout and eating a lot of ultra processed foods, like these are chemical messengers. They're going to do the best with what they've got in the moment that they're in. But just note that you may not feel all the big benefits if the lifestyle isn't backing it up.
100%.
Yeah.
I always joke that estrogen isn't going to lift the weights for you, but she can get you in the gym. She can at least get you in the gym.
Yeah. There's no magic pill. We get that. And the stronger your milieu is, then the more everything's going to come into place.
But so transdermal is the move for estrogen. Yeah.
Okay.
And for testosterone. Although, at least that's my personal recommendation is transdermal. I know that you can take shots for testosterone. I know that there's a couple other, ways that we can implement it. Pellets. Yeah. I'm not a fan of pellets. At all.
Describe pellets versus it wouldn't be intramuscular, just
intermuscular. It would be intramuscular for the shot, or at least I don't recommend either, especially when we're getting started. Like again, when we're talking about especially testosterone, that again, the most biologically abundant hormone in our bodies, and not estrogen, you would think, although estrogen, she's still the queen bee. I'd argue that estrogen still trumps testosterone in the body in terms of what it does, but testosterone is the most abundant. Just a little bit of information and context about testosterone is it's the most abundant, the highest it's going to be in our mid to late 20s, and then it's going to decline. That is just how it's for both men and women. It's going to start to decline. By the time we're in menopause, it'll be 50% of what it was when we were in our 20s. But for some women, it can decline faster. And so looking at labs is going to be super important, particularly with testosterone. You really want to look at labs because it's different than progesterone and estrogen. Like we can really nail testosterone numbers. So we want to be looking at that. Anything below 15 for me is when I'm like, okay, we should be looking at testosterone as something to supplement. And especially if a woman's feeling unmotivated, feeling a lack of confidence, low libido, the brain is not feeling great. Like those are the types of off-label things that I think we're looking at right now in terms of how testosterone can really benefit women. Currently, as you know, there's no FDA approved testosterone here in the States. The UK just got one literally last week. So we're working off of basically a lower dosage of men, right? We're working off of, because there's like 50 different, I'm joking, there's not 50, but there's a lot of options for men out there. So usually a cream is what I'm going to recommend because we can play with it based on how you're feeling, and I think with testosterone, you always want to test, don't guess. You want to test after about 8 weeks of a woman being on testosterone, making sure that we're not overdoing it. Super easy to overdo it, especially with things like pellets and with injections. Because again, that dosage, we're not able to control that dosage where we can control that with a cream. So pellets
Yeah,
are
that makes
where,
sense. Yeah.
we basically do little incisions kind of right at the butt area, and we insert these pellets. Again, dosage for some women can just be way too high. And the issue with pellets is that they're in for 6 months. And if it's a too high of a dosage and you're feeling more irritated, you're feeling more angry, you're more rageful, you're noticing changes, maybe acne, there's nothing we can do about that. Once they're in, they're in.
Easier
So
to add than it is to take
yeah,
away.
so it's why it's easier
Okay.
to start low and move up and titrate it with a cream. So I would say that most doctors that are really well versed in HRT management and support, recommending, they're going to start with a cream first. Well, before, I mean, most won't even do pellets at all, because it just feels like you're kind of rolling the dice a bit, and it doesn't.
Okay.
To me, I wouldn't ever want to roll the dice on my patient, like ever. So
Yeah.
Yeah, because you care.
especially in the beginning,
Yeah.
if this is our first foray into
Yeah.
testosterone therapy, like, no, thank
You
you.
want to have a good relationship. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually tried testosterone for a little bit and I had like all the symptoms you just said. I remember telling my husband, I was like, I feel like I could just punch a hole in the wall. Like I had this like rage and it was so weird. I'd never experienced this before. And I stopped it and 2 days later, all the symptoms were gone. So that's interesting to think like if that was a pellet, I would have been stuck with that
For months
for
and months and
months.
months.
Oh, my husband would have
Yeah.
definitely lost his mind. I was
And
Yeah.
some
not
of the
fun to
more
be around.
severe symptoms like hair loss and your voice changing, those are really severe, but it's happened. Or,
Okay.
clitoral enlargement, we've seen those things happen, but again, very rare, but still the mood and the brain changes can just be so intense and kind of unhinged. And if you're on pellets, there's nothing we can do about that. It breaks my
Okay.
heart how many times women just feel totally horrible on pellet testosterone. And yes, there's definitely the women who thrive on them too. Again, it's just not something I'm not willing to recommend. Like, I'm not willing to roll. Like I said, it feels like Russian roulette.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
what we
I
want.
mean, we have to be working with the practitioner. We've said that a lot, but it just is becoming even more apparent how important that is. I experimented with testosterone for a little bit as well, and they gave me the IM shot. And at the same time, they gave me spironolactone. They were like, we're just going to give you the anti-androgen rather than talking to me about how to titrate and how to listen to my body. They were like, just take it. And then you can deal with the downstream
The downstream
consequences with
effects,
this
which is
other
so unfair.
medication. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
not.
was like, no, I'm not going to take that.
That doesn't even feel good. You're like, wait, I've got the elixir for
I
overdoing
have the
it right
antidote.
here. The
No.
antidote. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what if we just don't, what if we don't need that? Like, what if
Yeah.
we just nail it? What if we start subtle? And that's the beautiful thing about so much of this. And I think the reason why a lot of providers will start low, because we can always titrate up, right? Especially with testosterone, we can absolutely always titrate up, and you will notice. And so again, I just want to emphasize being a healthy host. There's a lot of ways that we can naturally improve testosterone, especially when we're younger, like lifting weights and being in the gym, making sure our vitamin D levels are adequate, reducing our toxic load is really important as well, reducing our stress levels, adding in like not good stress, but maybe bringing in really nice hormetic stresses like sauna and moving and sunlight and those types of stressors. Those types of things are what's going to, obviously orgasms and sex is also, oxytocin is going to be a big one for testosterone as well. So if you're in your 30s, even in your early 40s, and you're like, hey, I don't really know if I want to get on testosterone yet. Like, maybe I'd like to wait. Maybe I'd like to see if I can raise this up naturally. I've seen a lot of women do that too. Not to say that there won't be a time where testosterone therapy won't be really beneficial, but sometimes we just need to bring in some lifestyle modifications and we can bump that number up. I've seen that many times. In like 90 days, I've seen women go into optimal range, which is lifestyle recommendations.
Yeah, I love that we have those opportunities, but like if you're not super symptomatic, why not try the lifestyle stuff?
Yeah.
First? Why not?
Because a lot of times once we start testosterone, mind you, if our bodies were like, no, this ain't it yet, it'll let us know. But once you're on testosterone therapy, you'll be on testosterone therapy, like a lot of these other hormones. So just note that these are long haul decisions, because once you're off hormones, the protection of those hormones disappear. So if you're asking like age wise, is there ever a time to stop? I mean, you always want to be working with your provider about symptoms, cost, benefit, cost, ratio, all of those things. But for the most part, it's pretty darn clear that you want to stay on those hormones for the longevity benefits all the way to the end. Because once you stop taking estrogen and progesterone, those benefits will be gone within a matter of months. That bone protection will disappear. That cardiovascular protection is going to disappear. The neuro protection disappears.
Yeah. Okay. It's quite a commitment.
Yeah. It's a commitment. Yeah. I mean, every day I'm switching patches twice a week, I'm taking progesterone 13 days out of the month. That's life now,
But you feel great and you're thriving.
Yeah.
So you see the value in it.
I do see the value overall.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we talked about a lot today, but really we just scratched the surface. So
I know we did.
think, this is where we're going to send people to your new book that's coming out very soon. So maybe you can just share real quickly, like who is this for? Yes. What can they look to learn from your new book?
Absolutely. It's for women heading into perimenopause. So if you were looking for a book of what to expect when you're going through peri, this is the roadmap. This is the book. Any woman in perimenopause, and even a little bit into early perimenopause as well, because there's no defining moment. I mean, it is. I mean, technically no periods for 12 months, sure. But really it's a continuum. There's no, I wish there was like everything stopped and reset once you got to menopause. It doesn't happen like that at all. You're just continuing. And depending on what happens, whether you have hormone therapy or not, once you're in menopause, you're in a low hormone state, you're in a deficiency state. So I just want, even in menopause, a lot of those peri symptoms are going to travel back. They're not going to be like, oh, we're going to disappear now that we're in menopause. Like that doesn't happen. Not for most women. Three things that I want women to know that they're going to get from it. Number one, they're going to understand what happens when their hormones are declining. They're going to be able to connect the dots between their symptoms and their long-term health, which is so important. Three, they're going to be able to know how to advocate for themselves and how to prepare for that visit with what labs to ask for, how to know their symptoms, what are their priorities, and literally point blank ask that provider, do you do menopause and perimenopause care? Like, do you even know how to take care of me in this transition? So prepare, and then the pillars and the 5-week plan that will literally help you to future-proof your health. Like that's what I've built into this book. And if you pre-order it, like if you're ordering it now, I have so many bonuses, including all the labs that I want you to ask for: symptom tracker, cycle tracker, recipes, meal plans, workout videos, exercise snack videos, so that you are moving throughout I'm literally heading to Disneyland. I will be doing jump squats throughout all of Disneyland, including probably clocking about 25,000 steps. So I'll be jump squatting my way through Disneyland all day long.
You'll be doing a marathon today. Yeah.
Exactly. Because those movement snacks, those bursts of movements, oh my gosh, they compound over time to build a more strong, more resilient version of you. So you'll get all of that in the bonuses while you're waiting for the book. So I want women to know that when they get the bonuses, when they get this book, that the strategies in the book will move the needle for them in literally 10 days. If you implement just a few of those strategies, you are going to feel like a different woman in about 10 days. That's going to propel you to keep making the changes to feel more alive in your body. That's the big memo. Because I'm in this journey, I'm in this transition, and I need wins every single day. I built the book like that.
Amazing. Incredible. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yes,
I know, me too. So good. And thanks for all the appetizers ahead of time. We're going to get people excited. So thank you for sharing your roadmap and actionables. Just want to ask you one last question. If you give our audience one piece of advice, something they can start doing even right now, today.
Ooh. The number one thing that I would tell women to do right now is to move after meals. Balance your blood sugar. That is going to be the biggest thing. And so movement throughout the day, especially after meals, like keeping your blood glucose and your insulin sensitive, is the biggest lever that you can pull to optimizing your cardiometabolic health. It is one of the best ways that we can measure your energy, and it's particularly your cellular energy. So just move like your life depends on it, because it does.
So good.
100%.
I think that's one of the best free biohacks out there. Love
Yes.
that.
And I know that your
thank
audience knows it, but it bears repeating.
Yes.
It bears repeating, because you can do, like, I'm usually doing, my son doesn't want to take a walk after dinner. He wants to build Legos. And so I am usually building Legos and then jump squats, 20 jump squats, building Legos, 20 jump squats, building Legos, 20 jump squats. I'm talking about less than 5 minutes. I can get my blood sugar in optimal range after dinner because of jump squats. You do not have to be outside. You do not have to, you know what I'm saying? You can be in the living room, doing workbooks with your kids, reading with your kids, watching Netflix, whatever you're doing. Just do some push-ups, do some jump squats, do some mountain climbers, do some lunges. Like, I mean, get in where you fit in. Just move your body, grab some weights, go up and down your stairs 5 times. It doesn't have to be complicated.
No, it's
so easy.
So easy. You got a body. Just move it.
You got a body and just move it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wonderful. All right.
Dr. Mariza, we're going to send our audience to your resources. Can you just quickly tell us, like, where's the best place to find you, how to pre-order the book?
Yes. So the Perimenopause Revolution book is everywhere books are sold. Get in where you fit in. I just finished the audiobook, so it's also on audiobook. And if you're like me and you're a mom who's busy, you consume content via audio. So just heads up, Audible will have it. I like audio and hardcover because I want the recipes, I want the protocols. So it's built for both. You can find me at drmariza.com. My podcast is Energized, because I literally want you feeling energized every single day, so you can do the things that you want to do and take care of the people who matter to you. And then on Insta at drmariza. And I love to make perimenopause fun. I like the levity. So you'll get a lot of like fun, ridiculous memes on there, but also really awesome content too, to move the needle for you.
Yes, your Instagram is very entertaining. I love it.
I mean, at this season in life, we need entertainment.
It's so good.
We do. Well, thank you so much.
All right.
This is Thanks for having me. Thank you.
And thanks to everyone that tuned in. We will see you next time.